First, I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar, Career Insurance. Career insurance in today's market cannot mean, like it did a generation ago, aiming to stay put in the same position or company or industry or even career. Today it means aiming to stay employed by staying employable and valuable to employers. Our content today will focus on actionable advice for how you can maintain an active network, keep your networking skills sharp, effectively manage your public profile, and keep abreast of the constantly evolving needs of your current employers and the potential employers whom you most value. A quick note on today's agenda. First, we'll hear a presentation from our featured speaker, Moshe Kravitz, and then we'll move to our interactive Q&A session where we'll spend the remainder of our hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you. So if you have any questions at any time, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. We can't promise to get all of them in, but we'll do our best and we'll follow up afterwards with any we did not get to. A few more logistical notes about today's webinar. A link to today's presentation and video of the webinar will be sent to all attendees within 24 hours of the event, and the presentation will be posted on performative.com for free download. Those who would like CPE credit through NASBA will need to answer all polling questions during the event and should have pre-registered for CPE credit. For any questions on CPE credits, please contact Tanya Walsh at twalsh@performative.com. We'll have Tanya's contact information up later in the webinar as well. Finally, you'll be asked to take a short survey regarding today's webinar, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback regarding our event today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer to our attendees for their valuable time. Before we get started, a quick word about Performative. Performative is the largest and fastest growing online community and resource for senior level corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. Performative connects corporate finance leaders to provide instant advice and insights on the tough financial and strategic challenges they face today. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker today, Moshe Kravitz, Certified 5 O'Clock Career Coach. Moshe guides his clients in selecting appropriate targets and in marketing themselves effectively. His experience includes many years as an educator, actuarial positions at CNA Insurance and Buck Consultants, and his position as Director of Financial Planning and Analysis at a major telecommunications energy company. Everywhere he works, Moshe demonstrates a passion for helping others to improve their skills and efficiency. With his passion, he helps job seekers to hone their job search skills, enabling them to land offers more quickly and at higher salaries. With that, I'd like to go ahead and hand the floor over to Moshe Kravitz, our featured speaker. With that, I'd like to hand it over to you, Moshe. Take it away.
Okay, thanks, Ernie, and welcome everybody to the webinar today. Recently, I passed by a high school in my neighborhood, which was constructing a new building. This is not it, but it's very similar, and I was very struck. It's all metal framing. Where's the wood? Not only that, where's the rest of it? Where's the hammers? Where's the nails? And the main question, where's the carpenter? Well, the answer to that is either the carpenter retooled himself by learning new skills, how to operate those pneumatic devices they put in the rivets or whatever it needs. Either he's retooled or else he's retired and somebody else is doing the job. Now, that ain't the half of it, because beyond that, you have next prefab housing where they make the whole thing in the factory. They come and they set it up, and all the construction workers are gone. I'll tell you, in fact, another example of the same phenomenon. When I worked in pensions, one of our major clients was a global tire manufacturing company. They froze the pension plans, paid out the employees, closed the factories, and built new factories to have robots making the tires. No employees, no pensions. Where are those employees? So a person in today's economy with today's technological advances either has to retool or he'll be retired. However, one should not despair, because in the same vein that companies are declining, other companies and industries are being created. this link will lead us to a slide that we'll see next, an actual slide used by the head data scientist of LinkedIn. And he did this study, which shows you the comparison from 2007 until 2011, change in employment percentages over many industries here. If you see in the bottom left, the newspaper industry from 2007 until 2011 shrunk by 30% of its employment. On the other hand, you look up at the top, online publishing grew by close to 30%. So while there are declining industries, there are growing industries, and that's where we want to focus because that is where the opportunities of the future lie. Here's one case in point. The new apps economy, as it is referred to, in 2011 boasted close to 500,000 employees, whereas in 2007 it had 0. So the question which we need to address is how to remain employable and valuable, first and foremost, to your current employer, and in case it need be, to other potential employers even within your current company, or other companies in your industry, or perhaps other industries. Start by looking out. Look out to be aware of the needs, the emerging needs in the marketplace. And keep aware of those changing needs. First of all, as we said, in your own current role, needs change. Outward a little farther, within your own company, within your profession, industry, economy, etc. Give you an example. My father-in-law was in the same company 29 years. He graduated, got his doctorate, went to work for Exxon as a chemical engineer, formulating gasoline, and he retired from Exxon 29 years later. But that's not happening very often today in our economy where things change so rapidly. But even in his case, even though he was at the same company for 29 years, he did not retire as a person who was formulating gasoline. He retired as VP of ecology. I doubt that the word ecology existed when he came out of school and went to work for Exxon. He was doing something totally new, in a new industry, so to speak, even though he might be sitting still in the same desk, employed by the same company. So keep aware of the changing needs in your environment, in your industry. Listed here are some of the obvious ones. They're with us in our daily work. They're in the popular literature already. And a person need not do much research. If a person would just look at the email solicitations that he receives from software vendors trying to sell him software to address all the needs that a person has to work on, a person can be kept abreast of at least what needs are already current in the market. But there's more that a person could do. He could look towards his professional associations. I recall that decades ago, the Society of Actuaries was working on behalf of their constituents of professional actuaries, looking to expand the job functions and the industries in which actuarial skills could be used. And in addition to what you see on top, the traditional applications of insurance and pension, you have a whole list. On the bottom over here, other industries, other risk-related functions where actuarial skills are welcomed and very valuable. So a person can turn to his own professional industry, professional association, and see if anything's being done at that macro level, so to speak, towards making other opportunities available for a financial professional, an accounting professional, etc. A person can learn new skills. You could be busy all day long learning new skills, but you have to be strategic. Yeah? So be strategic, first of all, in learning those skills which go with your personality, go with your experience, things that will enable you to get a good return on your investment in that learning. Peter Drucker advises a person should never invest in trying to improve what he's worst at, because he'll get a very poor return of investment. Not much improvement will ensue. However, he advises you should invest in what you're great at, because there you'll see a great return on your investment. So one way to be strategic in deciding which new skills to learn is which new skills are fitting with my talents, with my experience, etc. Also, you want to fit the new skills that you choose to learn to, as we mentioned, new emerging needs. You can see the list, read it for yourself, and I'll just discuss one of them, perhaps my favorite, the one at the bottom, Chief Profitability Officer. I'm not sure if Jonathan Burns, who's mentioned at the bottom, he's a senior lecturer at MIT. Not sure if he coined the phrase, but he definitely uses it in his book, Islands of Profit, in a sea of red ink, which I recommend highly to everybody on this webinar. And the new skill that he proposes is, based on his thesis, that 20% of your customers provide 150% of your profitability. Maybe not revenue, but profitability. 40% you break even, and 40% you lose money. And if you can construct a granular profitability map by customer, by product, you can improve profitability easily by 50% or more without CapEx. Doing that is something achievable. It's high profile. It doesn't take a lot of technical skills. It takes time, effort. It takes knowing what you're doing. He guides you through it. And so that's a type of relevant skill a person could learn in order to keep himself valuable to a current employer, and at the same time make himself valuable to any potential other employer. Some other new relevant skills. We all know there's technical skills and soft skills. Soft skills, by the way, are becoming much more emphasized in education. Schools are including this now when they're training technical people. Conferences are including soft skills as a side webinar that people could take. One example of a soft skill would be communication, which itself is very broad. We would include training analysts to do visual presentation of their data, which enables the users to see the story in the numbers by them having made a very readable and meaningful visual of the data. It means teaching technical people to be able to explain their results clearly to the lay people, their clients, their end users. It includes managers being trained how to communicate in a way which motivates their employees, how to work with executive management to get backing for important initiatives. And tweeting is a new way of communicating. I was at a finance conference, and the person directing that conference took me aside, and he saw my cell phone, which is not a smartphone, it's a plain old cell phone, and he laughed, and we were discussing about tweeting. And he, like he was born in the middle of the previous century, so he didn't grow up with tweeting, but he's involved in it, and he taught me how to do it. So I'm not saying that you have to, but it does broaden your communication in two directions. It enables you to communicate out to others and raise your own public profile. And I'm not talking about socially. He was at a conference tweeting a little bit about important information that was being given over at a finance conference. And at the same time, it broadens your way of receiving information because, imagine for him, he's directing the conference, and he's looking on Twitter and seeing what everybody's talking about. He gets immediate feedback on not only the people at the conference, but people who are receiving information back in the office about the conference. So it does broaden your communication in both directions, and it's not too hard to learn. Besides looking out at the market to keep abreast of emerging needs, look in at yourself to see what you have to offer. And we've mentioned this probably in every webinar, that a person it's valuable to be aware of your inventory. Your inventory is your skills and your passions. That's what you have to sell, to offer, to give a value to a current employer, to any other employer. How does one identify his most significant skills and passions? Look at a few of your significant accomplishments and drill in. Think, what core skills did you use to achieve that accomplishment? And why did you enjoy it? What motivated you? What impassioned you? Compile an inventory of these skills and passions and use that to drive your performance. Make sure that you're using those skills, those passions in your current job. Some people may not be given opportunity to use those skills and passions, but you can create opportunities to do so and become more valuable. Give you two quick examples. One client has a passion for improving efficiencies. He was given an auditing project, which he streamlined, reducing auditing time by 50%. He was giving a major reporting project. He automated it, eliminating probably 90% of the manual inputs. And he is aware of this talent, this passion, and he looks for opportunities, significant opportunities within his work to apply these skills and passions. Another example, have a person a client who started his career as an IT developer, quickly moved to systems analyst because of his uncanny ability to recognize, to detect problems that other people would never even notice. And not only that, but to devise creative, very effective solutions where once faced with the problem, people would think maybe there is no solution, no practical solution. And he branched out, not applying this skill only in the realm of systems, but in many, many different corporate processes for major organizations, resulting in huge reductions in staff costs, in other types of costs, in processing time. He's aware of these skills, and he uses them strategically in a way that has a significant impact. Let's see. So, put the two things together. You've identified your skills and passions, and now strategize and think, how can these skills and passions help you to satisfy the emerging needs, first of all, in your current position, or, if need be, in a different position. It's an important rule of thumb that perhaps some people don't realize, is that rather than just trying to be more productive in your current role, do more of the same, accomplish twice as much. Rather, a person should seek to be more valuable. Do something more valuable than anything that you're doing now, more valuable than anything else anybody else is doing. I have a client who's great in Excel, and he's constantly learning new Excel skills and tricks, and he's learned also one of the major software programs that provides for statistical analysis and visualization of data. And when he learns a new trick, a new skill, he thinks, what business need is there? What unanswered question is there that I can perhaps take these new skills and use the skills to address those business needs? And he's now able to model and provide quantitative information to help management answer questions which until now they were in the dark. They had to guess. he's doing something more valuable than he did before, and certainly than anyone else is able to do. So you want to aim to become more valuable in what you're able to contribute. I'll give you another example, quite different. I have a client who's a lawyer. One of his important clients is in the jewelry business, a business which is not very much involved with paperwork. My lawyer friend's client had a vision that he, with his skills, could add value to his client, to the jeweler, by advising that certain forms should be processed in making a sale to the jewelry customers. There was immediate pushback. It's complicated as it is. We don't have the operational staff to do such a thing, and I want to sell to my customers. I don't want to impede the sale by making it complicated with paperwork. No problem. These are things that the lawyer is tooled up to do. He designed a picture-ready template. You just paste this onto your letterhead and send it out, get answers to a few questions. I'll process it, prepare the forms. No paperwork for you to do, okay? And the customers put my name on the form. Any questions, they'll call me. I'll explain it to them. They'll see how it doesn't interfere with the business, with the transaction at all. And after persistence, the suggestion was accepted. And you see here at the bottom an email which this very busy jeweler, who can go 10 emails that you send him and not answer, not because he's impolite, but he's too busy. And he took a few moments to write this response. Mr. X, I appreciate all your help. I feel very fortunate to have you on our team, and I hope to do more and more business together. Now, think for a moment what he's accomplished. The lawyer not only broadened, he has a little more business now with this client, but he's adding more value. He's deeply entrenched now in the operational aspect of this client's business. That's what we aim to do when we're supplying to customers, right? How can we strategically beat our competition? By not only providing the product better quality, better price, but if we can take a role also in the operations, in the shipping, delivery, whatever it may be, with our customer, we're becoming ingrained in the operations of the customer. That's hard for a competitor to break into. And individually, as professionals, we look to do the same thing within our company. Become woven into the fabric of operations. One CFO who spoke at a conference said that he goes on sales calls along with the reps, and it's invaluable, because in a few moments he looks at the financials of the potential customer and is able to explain to them how this product will grow the bottom line. So a CFO who's involved in the sales process is woven into the fabric of operations of this company than somebody else. So seek to become more valuable in what you're contributing. Okay, we've addressed some of the obvious emerging needs. There are also non-obvious emerging needs. I say non-obvious, they are there. In fact, I love this quote from the Harvard Business Review. They quoted a novelist. They said that the future is already here. It's just not yet evenly distributed. Okay, so socks and are evenly distributed already, but in 2007, apps economy was surely not yet evenly distributed. It had to be there, or it couldn't have started blossoming. Maybe in 2006, right? Those people who were on the cutting edge may have detected it, but maybe by 2008, others could begin to detect it. In his book, his first book on scenario planning, The Art of the Long View, Peter Schwartz gives, beginning page 73, some suggestions on if a person wants to take initiative to try to be at the cutting edge and anticipate the new emerging needs of the market. So besides reading in your own subject area, business, finance, economics, read more broadly, science and technology, politics, popular subjects, even stuff that's way to the left, non-traditional sources, filter through it, see what looks like it may become mainstream and may not. And I'll tell you another thing, if you follow IPOs that have been granted, that are applied for, you'll see a lot of stuff that's coming up. Many of these will not make it. Some will just crawl along, but a few of them may be the next Walmart, the next Google, the next Amazon. So that's another place to look for clues of emerging needs. Okay, another thing we need to do is build and maintain a network. If we start networking when it's too late, so then it's too late, right? We should start today. And one thing that might provide impetus to begin building a network is recognition of the fact that 80% of the jobs that are offered were never advertised. Not with an ad, not with a recruiter. How do you get there? Through networking. There's very good information about networking, how to do it, how to build a network. On the Performative website, Mark Richards did 2 excellent webinars on networking, and I highly recommend them. If you go back to the spot on the website from Performative where you register for this webinar, you'll find his 2 webinars listed over there. The archive is there, and I highly recommend it. He did a great job. What I like to do here in mentioning networking is just give you kind of an anatomy of how one could begin to build a networking contact in the course of his daily work, right? There are networking contacts which might be from referral. Somebody told you, oh, you should speak to Jane, she can be helpful to you, and you call up and you have an in and a reason to discuss, and you know that there's value in maintaining this contact. There might be people whom you chose. You targeted these people because you saw there's value. So I'd like to tell you an example of that happened to me recently in the course of preparing this webinar. I called Society of Actuaries looking for that information that we saw a few slides back, and I was put in touch with a person who's in charge of academic programming. She was delighted to share that information with me, and I shared with her this analogy of the metal work instead of wood that we had at the beginning. She liked it very much. I asked if she could use it. I said, of course. And that's how you begin creating a networking contact. Give something which is valuable to the other person. Now, at that point, I have to think, is there value to create an ongoing networking relationship with this other professional person? Because networking, after all, we said in a previous webinar, that networking is not a binary function. Hello, do you have an opening? No, yes or no. If you had an opening, would you consider me? Yes or no. Your networking is not a binary function. It's a continuous function, meaning that you want to renew your contact, keep in touch a month from now, a quarter from now. How do you keep in touch? So if I would deem that this person in charge of academic programming, who has contact probably with many students, with many people who have contact with students, might be in position to recommend a career coach to them. So if I would deem that that might be valuable to pursue, so then I would think how to offer and give this person additional contact, send them something. And she told me on the spot, she said her plate is full, she's too busy, she cannot take on any new projects. So that tells me, don't send any interesting stuff for additional projects you're not interested. However, if I could think of interesting stuff that will expedite her accomplishing the tasks that are on her plate that she is striving to accomplish, wouldn't that be well received? So it takes a little homework, it takes a little thought. How can I share something of value which will continue the contact once a month, once a quarter, be valuable to that person, which builds rapport, it builds credibility and trust, and it could be as easily as, you may come across some email, some article, you say, hey, that person could benefit from this, and you forward it to them, and they can get value from the information, and they definitely are touched, impressed by the fact that you're thinking of them, and in that way you can develop an ongoing networking relationship. Okay, another important thing is to build a public profile. Some of us are out there, some not. Realize that the hiring game is making a 180-degree turn, meaning the only way in the past to get hired was present yourself to the employer. How could he find you? You find an ad, you send him a resume, you hope that he calls you in. Today, he scours LinkedIn and calls you in. He found you. I know of one hiring manager. He hires a lot of hires every year. For years, he hasn't looked at resumes. He goes to LinkedIn, he shops over there, looks by job title, looks by accomplishments, and calls in hand-picked candidates. So not being there is missing out on opportunities. And again, when it's too late, it's too late. The person wants to build an online public profile now. You can post your job title. That itself gets a lot of notice. Experience, what I like to call a PDA file, which is a positioning statement. Here's what I do and what level, something to differentiate me. Why should you be interested in me rather than 1,000 other people? And a few quantified accomplishments which are compelling and kind of substantiate my claims in the positioning and differentiation statement. Until now, artists had a profile, but nobody else. Today, a CFO can have a profile, a portfolio posted on LinkedIn of accomplishments in his career. Another way to build, enhance your public profile is to join the groups, special interest groups within LinkedIn. I sometimes get contacted by somebody, how'd you find me? I found you on LinkedIn. They go to these special interest groups where they expect to find people with the skills and interests that they're looking for. If you participate in the groups, that's for sure good. You could make yourself an expert so that questions in your subject area are submitted to you and you answer them. Also increases your public profile. If you have recommendations from others, you can put them on LinkedIn. I advise my clients, and I started this myself years ago. You did a great job, and your client, internal client, external client, wrote you a little email to commend it. Make an archive to save all this stuff, because that's very powerful. Like you saw the one that we had there from the lawyer. Okay, some other things we could do for enhancing our public profile. We mentioned question answer, an expert. Publish. And if you don't feel like writing articles, be quoted in articles. Here's the way to do it. There's an organization called HARO. They'll send you an email every day. You just Google HARO, you punch in HARO and you'll find it. Help a reporter. There's everyday reporters working under pressure, time pressure, a schedule. They have to get out an article on this topic, that topic, and they post looking for information on this topic. If you have it, send me an email, and they'll come back to you and interview you, answer questions, and quote you in major or minor publications. That gives you exposure and gives you credibility. You've been quoted in these publications. You can give speeches or be a panel participant. You can join a board of directors. If it sounds like a very far-off thing, your first target doesn't have to be General Motors. It could be a small, let's say a local, even not-for-profit organization that's big enough to have a board of directors and get exposure like that, get experience like that. You can post suggestions on a reading list. Amazon has it. Other sites have it. Posting books that you would suggest people in your field would be interested to read. All these things create and build your public profile. If somebody ever becomes interested in you as a candidate, wouldn't he go and Google your name and see what comes up? You could do the same thing. You could do it right now. Put in your name and see what comes up, what kind of a public profile you've established so far, and now you know a few other things that you could do to enhance that public profile. Finally, scenario planning. Now, does scenario planning mean they have to be clairvoyant and know what will happen in the future? For sure not. For sure not. It just means really being thoughtful and being kind of pragmatic. That you think about what plausible scenarios could play out in the next couple of years, a couple decades if you want, and then today construct an appropriate response if and when such a scenario would occur. What should I do? There are tremendous advantages in doing such a thing. One advantage is that when the unexpected strikes, sometimes there's panic, and it's hard to be objective. However, if the plan was laid out when you're not in that mode, the plan was laid out when you're calm and collected, so it's well thought out and it's objective, and you can immediately begin upon the plan because it's in place, right? It saves you time also, and you know you're doing the right thing. Here's an example of a scenario, right? M&A. If your company acquires some other company or becomes acquired, will there be a need for 2 CFOs? Maybe yeah, maybe not. What can I do today? This is another advantage of scenario planning, is that I can start today doing something about it. Oh, if I had only done this, I'd be in a better shape. Well, scenario planning allows you to, if I'd only do this, since I can easily imagine such a plausible scenario, so today I can start asking myself the question, how can I position myself to be in a good spot in case that scenario would happen? How can I become somewhat indispensable? So a few different suggestions. You don't have to do all of them. You do which ones seem appropriate for your own self and your own situation. Subject matter expertise. If you know so much about the business and its workings that it'd be hard to find anybody else, and it's a big loss to the company not to keep you on. Or become maybe very, very deeply involved in a long-term project and it wouldn't pay to stop that. Or a person may be able to develop outstanding relationships, irreplaceable relationships within the company with staff, with outside vendors, with supply chain, with the sources of capital. It doesn't pay to lose such an asset. So you can start thinking today, what could I start doing and building today to anticipate in case there would be such a scenario? Here's one other example of a scenario. A person may be CFO of the most profitable division at the peak of his business cycle. Well, we know today that business cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. Eventually, the line begins to slide down. So what will be next? A person could start asking himself today, what will be the next bread and butter product for my division? He could ask himself, what will be the next up-and-coming division in the company? Can I somehow get a foot or a toe involved over there so that if and when the emphasis goes away from where I'm now currently entrenched, I don't have 2 feet go out from under me. I have at least 1 foot in another place with some stability. So these are a few small examples of beginning to do today what I could do in order to prepare for plausible, envisionable scenarios. Okay, this summarizes the points that we touched on, certain ways that things a person can work on today to remain employable and make himself valuable more valuable to his current employer or to other employers. You're welcome to look it over and submit any questions things we may have left out, questions that may have come to your mind in the course of the seminar or webinar, and thank you for your attendance today. Ernie, back to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Moshe, for that great, insightful content. Right now we're going to begin our polling questions. We're going to launch 2 polling questions. We'd love for everyone to participate in each polling question. And again, please note, those of you in today's audience who are after CPE credits, you'll need to answer both of the polling questions. I'm going to go ahead and launch the polling questions as we begin our Q&A session to be sure we take full advantage of our opportunity to tap into Moshe's knowledge and insights. As a reminder, if you have a question you'd like to have answered by Moshe, please ask it in the questions area in the GoToWebinar control panel. First question, Moshe, is how do I know if and when I should be looking for another position if I'm currently employed?
Yeah, it's a sticky kind of a question. So it's a very practical, pragmatic question. The first answer is that we discussed many things here in the webinar that a person could and maybe should be doing even before the if and when of looking for another position, building his network, building his skills, so the if and when shouldn't come. Okay. Besides that, a few things that a person could do is there's always people around in the company who seem to be in the know. So if you're in touch with those people and keep your ears open and try to know earlier on rather than later on, that could give you a clue. A person on his own, especially a financial person, by following his own company's financial health and results, product cycles, following the industry, following the economy, he can know himself when things would be expected to be getting shaky, and may decide at that point to crank up efforts towards making himself marketable. But again, there's things that a person can do even without that variable of if and when. Have an existing relationship, let's say like with a recruiter, with a good recruiter whom you've scouted out, you know they're good, so that if and when it hits, that the infrastructure is in place. In fact, having done that, having infrastructure in place, having, let's say, a current resume, having relationship with recruiter, enables the person to assume a little more risk in risking it out to stay where he is, because in case they get the notice, his infrastructure is already in place, so he can hit the ground running.
Okay, great. Thanks, Moshe. I've got a kind of a related question here, and it says, how do I network and actively manage your online value proposition and not set off warning bells at your current employer? So you want to be out there looking, but how would you suggest that people do this without sending off any warning bells at their current employer?
Yeah, that was current. There was recently a question on performative, and a good answer was that I think Cindy Kraft gave this answer, maybe others also, that since if a person is in the course of his business, building himself a online profile. Yeah, I'm in a company, I love my job, they love me here, but I build myself an online profile, and I don't know whose idea it was, but LinkedIn is ostensibly, you put your contact information over there so you can make contacts for business relationships, and it's true when people do use it like that, but ultimately it's used, as a shopping mall for recruiters. But it has become accepted that a person can be there building his online profile and building his credibility, and if he's doing it in that manner, I don't think it'll be suspected. In the back of their minds, his employer knows that the person is building himself maybe a safety net, because he is too. He's on LinkedIn also. The average tenure for a job today is 4 years. So a person will do well to be out there building this profile, and if he's doing it in this calm, methodical way, it could be that it will not be suspected.
Okay, great. Thanks, Moshe. In terms of their efforts in career insurance, how would you suggest someone go about finding the balance between maintaining their current role and, again, increasing the value proposition to their current employer versus, in some sense, preparing maybe for a different position?
The major focus, I would say, should be in maintaining your current position to the greatest extent that it's feasible. I'll tell you an analogy. Let's say a person went to the Greek islands on vacation, and he's going up in the mountains, and he has a pack mule, and the mule is loaded up with all their provisions and all their stuff, and it wasn't packed so well, and it starts shifting and falling down. So with a little bit of effort and a little bit of time, somebody can readjust that load and keep it intact, keep it in place. If, however, they're not on time and the whole thing falls down, it takes a lot more manpower, a lot more effort and time to get it back up. And it takes less to remain in your current position, as long as that's feasible, than it would take to go ahead and get a new position. So the major focus should be in keeping your job. But again, keeping your job doesn't mean staying entrenched in this function, doing this thing. Keeping your job means, like we spoke just now for the last quarter of an hour, enhancing your skills, growing your skills. There was a banker. He was an executive in a bank, and he'd been there at that bank for 29 years. And he was speaking with a career coach, and in the conversation, he pulled out from his drawer a current resume. Well, it sounds a little funny, but that's how he managed to become an executive banker in the same bank where he started 29 years before, because focus on maintaining his job by advancing his skills, responding and being aware of what the growing and emerging needs are within his organization. That's what enabled him to stay there. And those are the same efforts which will be valuable if and when a person needs to look out. All the type of effort that he's putting in over here will be usable if he needs to look for another job. Just that a secondary focus should be, like we've discussed also, building that infrastructure so that it's ready for him when he needs it.
Yeah, in terms of reviewing the emerging trends, like you mentioned, in this area of information, oftentimes overload, how do you personally, and how do you suggest people filter out kind of what's important from the noise?
Probably take a lot of thought to give a good answer, but I'll give you one off the cuff. Sometimes, if you're getting the same signal from multiple sources, that could be an indication that there's something significant to it. Okay, beyond that, I have to give it more thought.
Okay, great. Can you provide us, you mentioned, some skills that, you want to identify skills that make you more valuable. Could you just give us a few skills that are probably transferable across industries, or just kind of review a couple that you've already shared with us that people might develop those skills that you think would translate well, that aren't necessarily completely technical?
Non-technical skills, you mean the soft skills?
Yes, yes.
Okay. We spoke a lot about communication. If there's another area besides communication, I would like to emphasize that profitability. If you see in his book, he writes about the people who undertook it, what kind of major impact it had on their organization and on their career, because it lifted them very much. And we're speaking to finance and accounting people. And I would advise that they, based on their role and their skills, do whatever they can to promote profitability within their organization. That has an impact. I'm very partial also to another point that we touched on about data visualization. I think it's a skill which is very much lacking in corporations, and it's being taught. I was at a seminar where somebody presented on this topic, and in their company there's an ongoing program of training for how to do proper presentation of data, and it's available for any employee who wants to register for it. They give it for free. This major organization sees that much value in it. So those are two skills that I think are definitely transferable throughout functions, throughout industries.
Oh, great. Thanks, Moshe. I'll just add myself from my personal experience. One area which I took an interest early on was social media. And so as I was able to kind of get up the learning curve on social media, at my previous organization, others weren't up to speed on that. So that was just an area that I saw emerging that was relevant to my potentially to my company, my industry. And that's another area which I think is always welcome. Social media, and also, on the online information, the reputation management as well. Have a question, kind of follow up on the communication skills. We're talking about expressing our value proposition. It's often, people often say we have strong written and oral communication skills. Can you give a few examples of how that's demonstrated or accomplished? So how do you, is it purely publications and public speaking, or how do people communicate that to people that they actually have these strong soft skills?
How can he know if I have good communication skills?
Yeah, how can you communicate that you have great written oral communication skills to someone, whether it's online or in the midst of a conversation?
Well, you could tell them, or you could demonstrate it, right? Show me. If I submit something which is very well written and comment somehow, I don't know, there's a need to toot your horn in a way, but not to be obnoxious, right? So you have to do it in a discreet way by indirect reference. You submit a written document, which was written well, and you mentioned that I spent a lot of time on that document because I aimed for it to be clear and compelling. Maybe ask if the person if they get that impression. But yeah, either tell me, or much better is show me. And sometimes you have to tell them what you showed them so they get it. Don't leave it for their imagination. And Will Rogers used to say, he was a famous cowboy speaker. He said, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So if you show me and you tell me, then you have a double impact. But tell it in a way which is not boastful, but a way that makes sense.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I also think that you mentioned several ways as well as far as you're demonstrating your communication skills online. So you previously mentioned, if you are a contributor into LinkedIn groups, if you're a blogger, if you're on Twitter, and just adding your subject matter expertise that way. And then also if you're in associations, if you speak, at associations, you'll have presentations. You can share those on LinkedIn as well. So just showing your subject matter expertise within your profession is also a great way to demonstrate that. And also just as participating in webinars today, so this webinar is going to be recorded, so Moshe could share that, right, with a potential employer, and they say, hey, look at this, he can deliver a great webinar, and just those tangible items, I think, are very, very valuable, and then you can promote those softly through your LinkedIn profile, whether it's LinkedIn, again, on written presentations and PowerPoints, there's other vehicles such as SlideShare, so you can help promote your communication skills as well. Final question here for you, Moshe, and we often have this question when we're dealing in the career management arena. In terms of career insurance, if it's a little bit intimidating, how would you suggest that someone just get started on this path?
Just quickly, it's the third time I'm mentioning it. I would say begin with 2 initiatives. Don't undertake too much once. Begin with 2 initiatives and do something which you don't have to go very far out of your way to accomplish it. And I take the stairs up to my office every day because like that, it doesn't cost me anything for the exercise. It doesn't cost me any time. I'm going there anyway. And I pass by the stairs. In building a profile and building skills, try to do it in a way also that it's practical and likely to get done. Pick 2 initiatives. 1 towards keeping your job, and 1 towards building your network for getting a job. So towards your job, again, I'm stressing profitability management. And towards getting a job, the point you just mentioned, Ernie, about your public profile, because it gets you out there so they can find you. It makes you be in touch with the emerging needs, and you'll find a lot of benefits from that. If I can make one final comment, I had this experience recently with 2 different clients. It's obvious, but sometimes you have to say the obvious. Don't burn your bridges behind you. 2 different professionals, people who are very discerning, very careful. They took a lot of time before changing jobs. They did their due diligence. It seemed like a very practical move. And after 1 year, both of them are back in the company that they came from. And so just emphasizing the obvious, don't burn your bridges.
All right, thanks, Moshe, for that great closing comment and all of your great content and all your time and insight here. If you would like us to connect you directly with Moshe, please indicate that on the survey. We'll ask you to take immediately when we conclude the webinar here this morning. Moshe is clearly a leader in his field and an excellent source on today's topics as well. A few other logistical notes on closing down the webinar. Moshe mentioned some great networking presentations, and that gentleman's name is Mark Richards. So someone asked a question about that. So if you have any questions about where to get those presentations, you can please, you see Tanya Walsh's email up there, please send her an email and we'll get those over to you. Again, if you have questions on CPE credits, please email Tanya Walsh at twalsh@performative.com. I would like to thank the audience for their valuable time today. We very much appreciate that. And we hope to see you in the future at future performative events, and also online at performative.com. I'd like to wish everyone to have a great day. Thank you very much, everyone. This will conclude the webinar.